Many of you in this room may remember a famous rock band called Santana. And I will start my talk by quoting somebody who's almost got the same name, was not a famous rock band, but an American philosopher called George Santayana. Just keep those two names apart. And everybody remembers his line that those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. This single sentence contains an entire philosophy of history, that the past will always repeat themselves, just like in Kohelet. And it will repeat itself unless we learn from it. This is the idea of regular recurrence, history as a cycle, if you wish. But, as Santayana says, we can break it if we only understood the past correctly. Now, the next rock band is called Karl Marx, and he was a bit more cynical. He was a bit more cynical when he spoke about recurrence, and so he famously wrote that in the 18th Brumaire, history repeats itself first as a tragedy and then as a farce. I personally will give you the third rock band here, which I believe in, and that's Hegel, who I think has said the right thing. What experience and history teach is this, that people and governments never have learned anything from history or acted on principles deduced from it. That is Hegel, philosophy of history. And one fourth quote, George Bernard Shaw, I think, who goes one better and who kind of hits the theme that I want to dwell on. And he wrote in Man and Superman, if history repeats itself, and the unexpected always happens, how incapable must man be of learning from experience? So those four quotes pretty much cover the waterfront. And I think that George Bernard Shaw is right. History may repeat itself, but we don't act on it. And I like him best because he says what is really the most obvious point when you deal with philosophies of history. He says, look, forget this. History is something, the unexpected, where the unexpected always happens. And I think that's the most intelligent take on history. The unexpected always happens. And it has to happen because men are not molecules whose motion and behavior can be deduced or can be explained in terms of the laws of thermodynamics. Historical events, if you want to be very, very scientific about it, historical events are always overdetermined. So we don't know what's a necessary and what's a sufficient condition. And there are thousands of examples which prove the point. I mean, did anybody predict in, say, July of 1989, or in October of 1989, that the Berlin Wall would fall in 2 months later? Or that the mighty Soviet Union would literally commit suicide on Christmas Day 1991? None of us really could predict that. Or my favorite example is, what about the birth control pill? The birth control has transformed culture and history in the last 50 years. Who could have predicted that it came and when it came? Now, the question really of our panel is not so much kind of philosophizing, but the question is a very practical one. Does the understanding of history help us to manage current crises, like the 100-year conflict between Jews and Arabs over this tiny plot of land between the Jordan and the Mediterranean? And now let me say something which may grate on you on your ears, as we think about this particular conflict, sitting here where we are in Jerusalem, I think we would be better off without a sense of history. Why? I think that is in large part our competing national narratives, say the Holocaust or the Nakba, which drive the conflict. And if our brains were blank slates, nothing in it, I think we could probably do a lot better in solving this particular issue, which has been torturing this neighborhood, and perhaps even all the other ones between nations with very different memories in the world. So to exaggerate a little bit, and to continue this theme, another quote, a fifth quote, Tolstoy, who said, "Happy people have no history." And that's something worth thinking about. Or that also something that's attributed to Napoleon, history is the invention of historians. Not bad for a general, huh? Now, in conclusion, though, having said all this about how history doesn't really follow systems of thought or any particular direction, as the Enlightenment thought and Marx thought. Having said all this, I want to surprise you. My children a few years ago asked me, "What should we study? We don't know what to study when we go to university." Well, I said, if you don't know what you want to study, there's a very clear answer: study history. Why? So they looked at me with big eyes. Why? I said, history is everything. History is sociology, it's economics, it's politics, it's technology, it's war, it's peace, it's invention, it's ideology, religion, the arts, philosophy. It is the story of our life on Earth. And while history doesn't tell you how to play the stock market or solve the Middle East conflict, and certainly to foresee the unforeseeable, that's what I told my daughters, it makes you a lot smarter and wiser. While history doesn't allow you to predict the world, it helps you to understand it a little bit better. So my last conclusion, last word, 3 cheers for history. Thank you.